Why winter warfare is so challenging for Russian troops in Ukraine.
Winter warfare has long been a significant challenge for militaries across the globe, and Russia, despite its historical experience in cold weather combat, faces numerous difficulties in adapting to the harsh winter conditions in Ukraine. The challenges posed by winter warfare in Ukraine are not merely about cold temperatures. They are a complex amalgamation of environmental factors, logistical issues, and tactical difficulties. For Russian troops, fighting in Ukraine during the winter months presents both physical and psychological obstacles that impact operational effectiveness and combat readiness. However, the irony lies in the fact that winter, which historically helped Russia repel invasions from Napoleon and Hitler, has now become a double-edged sword for the Russian military. The same season that turned the tide against foreign invaders in the past now complicates Russia's own military operations, especially as they fight in Ukraine, a country that, while similar geographically, offers its own unique challenges. The complexity of Russian winter in Ukraine. Russia's historical military experience in winter warfare, particularly during World War II, has shaped its army's doctrines and equipment. However, the winter conditions in Ukraine, while similar to those of Russia, present unique challenges. The geography of Ukraine, the nature of the conflict, and the unpredictability of winter weather make the operational environment far more complex than simply facing extreme cold. The Russian winter, typically starting in late November and lasting until March, is characterized by freezing temperatures, heavy snowfall, ice, and strong winds. Average temperatures in Ukraine can drop as low as 10 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees in some regions, with colder spells reaching 20 degrees or 4 degrees, or even lower, especially in the east. These conditions are not only physically demanding for soldiers, but also create a series of operational difficulties. The impact of cold on equipment and personnel. One of the most significant challenges for Russian troops operating in Ukraine's winter is the impact of cold weather on both personnel and equipment. The cold affects soldiers' health, morale, and ability to function effectively. Soldiers must contend with frostbite, hypothermia, and other cold-related illnesses that can incapacitate them or reduce their operational capabilities. In extreme cold, the body uses energy to maintain warmth, draining soldiers' stamina and slowing down reaction times. This can make extended periods of combat and long patrols highly exhausting. Additionally, soldiers' equipment, including weapons, vehicles, and communication devices, becomes more prone to malfunction. For example, firearms may jam due to the freezing of lubricants, and vehicle engines can fail to start or run efficiently in low temperatures. Even heavy artillery, which is crucial to Russian tactics, becomes difficult to maneuver or fire effectively in sub-zero conditions. These issues compromise the effectiveness of combat units, forcing them to devote valuable time and resources to maintaining their equipment. Additionally, Russia's logistical support systems are often strained by winter conditions. Heavy snow can block roads and impede the delivery of supplies. The ground becomes frozen, making it difficult to dig trenches, move heavy equipment, or perform maintenance on vehicles. This creates a bottleneck in supply lines, leading to shortages of essential materials such as food, ammunition, and medical supplies, all of which are critical for prolonged operations. The psychological toll of winter combat. Winter warfare is not just physically exhausting, it also has a profound psychological impact on soldiers. The harsh weather conditions, long hours of darkness, and isolation from supply lines can take a significant toll on morale. Soldiers can experience combat fatigue, or winter fatigue, where they are physically and mentally drained by constant exposure to the cold and the relentless demands of the battlefield. This leads to decreased effectiveness and can increase the likelihood of errors, which is particularly dangerous in high-stakes combat situations. The extreme cold also forces Russian soldiers to adopt a defensive posture, which could hinder offensive operations. The freezing temperatures make it challenging to maintain continuous offensive momentum, and as a result, Russian forces have had to focus more on fortifying their positions rather than making swift advances.
This defensive posture gives Ukrainian forces
who are more familiar with the local terrain and weather conditions, an advantage. The terrain, a double-edged sword. Ukraine's terrain is another factor that complicates winter warfare. While much of the country's landscape is flat, which could theoretically benefit armored divisions, the combination of frozen soil and snow can significantly slow down the movement of tanks, infantry, and logistics vehicles. In regions with swamps or marshy ground, the terrain becomes even more treacherous, as it can become extremely muddy when thawed, or, in the case of rivers and lakes, dangerously icy when frozen. The challenge of moving large formations through such terrain makes coordinating and executing complex maneuvers difficult. Russian forces, which rely heavily on armored units and artillery, often find that their traditional tactics, such as the use of massed tank divisions or mechanized infantry, are far less effective in winter conditions. Additionally, the limited visibility brought on by heavy snowfall and fog further impedes Russian tactical flexibility. The Ukrainian advantage. Ukrainian forces are far more acclimated to the winter conditions, which gives them a natural advantage over Russian troops. Having fought through numerous winters during the ongoing conflict, Ukrainian forces have adapted their tactics and equipment for cold weather combat. The Ukrainian military's logistical networks are also more efficient in dealing with the winter months, as they can better predict and respond to disruptions caused by snow and ice. Furthermore, Ukrainian forces have developed a strong local knowledge of the terrain, enabling them to take advantage of natural features like forests and rivers for cover and ambushes. The experience of Ukrainian forces in defending their homeland, coupled with the emotional and psychological advantages of fighting on familiar ground, allows them to utilize the winter months more effectively than Russian forces. Ukrainian soldiers are familiar with the risks of the cold, and many have developed specialized winter equipment to cope with the extreme temperatures. They have also trained for winter-specific combat techniques, such as the use of smaller, more mobile units and the creation of well-concealed defensive positions. These advantages help to offset any technological or numerical superiority that Russian forces may possess. Strategic considerations and the war of attrition. Winter warfare in Ukraine also leads to a shift in the nature of the conflict. Prolonged cold weather combat often results in a war of attrition, where both sides aim to wear down their adversaries over time. This type of warfare is grueling and can be far more unpredictable, with both sides suffering casualties, equipment losses, and supply shortages. In these conditions, patience, discipline, and adaptability are key. For Russia, the challenge is to maintain its offensive while also ensuring that its forces are sufficiently supplied and equipped to survive the winter. The need for Russian troops to fight in the freezing cold while securing vital objectives, whether in urban centers or rural areas, requires high levels of coordination and preparation. This logistical burden increases exponentially in the harsh Ukrainian winter, where even minor disruptions in the supply chain can have outsized consequences. The irony of winter, a double-edged sword for Russia. Winter has been a paradoxical element in Russian military history. Historically, it played a critical role in Russia's defense against both Napoleon and Hitler, who suffered disastrous defeats, largely due to the severe winter conditions. The brutal Russian winter not only halted Napoleon's Grand Army in 1812, but also crippled Hitler's Operation Barbarossa in 1941. In both cases, the harsh winter conditions served as a force multiplier for Russian forces, neutralizing the advantages of the invading armies. Yet, in the current conflict in Ukraine, the same winter that once protected Russia now presents an obstacle. While Russian forces are more accustomed to operating in cold climates than their adversaries, the severe conditions still impose serious challenges. The inability to quickly adapt to the full scale of winter warfare in Ukraine, compounded by logistical difficulties and the need for specialized equipment, highlights the irony of a historical advantage now turned to a modern disadvantage. Conclusion: the strategic burden of winter warfare for Russia. Winter warfare in Ukraine presents a multi-layered challenge for Russian troops. While Russia has significant experience in fighting in cold conditions, the combination of extreme weather, difficult terrain, logistical bottlenecks, and the psychological toll on soldiers creates an environment in which maintaining combat effectiveness is significantly more difficult. The limitations imposed by winter conditions hinder Russia's traditional heavy offensive tactics and emphasize the need for adaptability, mobility, and local knowledge, factors that give Ukrainian forces a strategic advantage. The harsh Ukrainian winter not only tests Russia's military readiness, but also forces it to rethink its strategies and tactics. The ability to adapt to these conditions and continue effective operations is a test of Russian military professionalism, and failure to do so may ultimately result in a costly and protracted war of attrition. For Russia, maintaining momentum in the face of the brutal winter months will require substantial strategic adjustments and a new approach to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.